What's up, metal and heavy music fans? Today we are ranking the second albums from classic melodic death metal bands. Alright, let's kick things off with a big one in Flames, the Jester race, legendary album in Gothenburg Melodeath history, and a massive improvement, I would say, over Lunar Strain. Very consistent, but almost uniform to a fault, I would say. I do feel like it lacks maybe some of the higher points of the next few albums. But of course, there are some real classics here, like the title track with that folky sound in the guitars, and I just gotta say, there's something about those classic era In Flames guitar riffs that's just so deeply ingrained in their DNA, and probably the DNA of the entire genre. Goliath's Disarm Their Davids is another great one. Gyroscope is one of my personal favorites. I got a lot of crap for putting this album at B tier on my In Flames discography tier list, but as far as the options on this one in comparison go, it deserves the coveted S tier. Next up is Insomnium with Since the Day It All Came Down. What an incredible intro to this album, with the piano leading into the pounding toms and big riffs of the title track. Just pure emotion put to recording, second only to Dark Tranquillity in that respect, I would say. Lots of great acoustic moments on here as well to further broaden the dynamics and atmosphere. Death Walk the Earth really making use of those classic Gothenburg riffs. I'm not as into the portions with the whisper vocals, and it's not quite as consistent all the way through as some of my favorites here, but trim it down a few minutes and it's a masterpiece, though also maybe just a click short of the debut. I'm going to put it at A tier. Next up is At the Gates with Fear I Kiss the Burning Darkness. Sick title, by the way. I think it perfectly captures the mixture of heaviness and dark atmosphere of this album. Pretty significant step up from the last one, with them sounding much more like At the Gates at this point. Some cool dynamics here too, with songs like Light of Christ, The Break of Autumn, and The Architects. Lots of neat little start-stop moments in terms of the performances. Pretty solid effort, if a little gloomy for my taste anyways, and lacking a bit in comparison to, again, some of these other albums. Not in my top 3 from the band either. I'm going to put it at B tier. I have a feeling some people are going to be upset about that in the comments, but that's what they're for. Let me know what you think. Nightrage, Descent into Chaos. So this one has S tier riffs, like really great energy. The only thing holding it back is the severely one-note vocals and the fact that they came to the game a little later, so it's kind of less innovative. Very reminiscent of In Flames guitar work, but still doing a really fantastic job with it. And again, with better vocals, I would rate this much higher, but as it stands, I'm going to put it at a C. Then we have Omnium Gatherum with Years in Waste. Another case of really solid riffs, but really just bad vocals on this one. Like on that previous album, they're fine. They're just kind of dull, a little bit like unrefined, but here, just legitimately almost unlistenable, in my opinion. The hooks are definitely reminiscent of Soilwork and Arch Enemy, so instrumentally really good. There's even some Hammond organ too, but again, the vocals, I just can't. I just can't with this album. I'm going to put it at D tier. Alright, Moore's Principium Est, The Unborn. Glad that this album is now coming up in the rotation because it is fantastic. Arguably the band's best, and sort of an unsung classic overall. Pure is an incredible tone setter with that epic guitar line and battering snare, really building things up, then giving way to the electronic ambience and haunting female vocals, and then boom, right back into it after that. Parasites of Paradise also has this great drum intro and super brutal vocals leading into another very cool guitar hook and great synth. They've got a very particular way of approaching synth too on this album that is just so perfect in general. You could even make some comparisons to like Flesh God Apocalypse in this department. Altered State of Consciousness is another banger with almost kind of like an At the Gate style, and then the title track has these amazing simulated strings for the hook. Must listen. Please check this album out and check out the original before you hear the re-recorded versions, please, and thank you. I'm going to put this one at S tier. Then we have Amon Amarth with The Avenger. So I think this takes everything that I already loved and said in my previous video about the debut and just steps it up. One of my favorite albums from them overall, and easily my favorite of their early discography. They were still very aggressive at this point with that raw 90s production that sounds like everything is just burning around you, very fast, hadn't moved into the more mid-pace stuff that they became known for. Bleed for the Ancient Gods is a great album opener, and then that crazy cheesy vocal intro for Metal Wrath gets me so fucking amped every time I hear it. God, His Son, and Holy Horror brings some really infectious tremolo melodies. Great album, maybe even a little underrated in their discography, I would say. I'm gonna put it up at A tier. Then we have Belakor with Stone's Reach. Very Insomnium in the somber atmosphere here, stepping up the riffs, tightening up the songwriting from the debut. Held in Hollows and Aspect are fantastic songs, and this is one of the more progressive albums on this list overall, I would say. Still not in their top form. I think that comes into play with the next one, A Breath and Bone, which is just like stunning stuff. Looking forward to talking about that one. But this one, I know it's a fan favorite, but I've just never really loved it. And even on this most recent re-listen, I just was kind of like, it's good, but not great. So I'm going to put it at B tier. Next up is Scar Symmetry with Pitch Black Progress. So another kind of very Soilwork album in both the riffs and the mixing in of the clean vocals here. They do get a little yarly at times, but not as bad as on another album we're going to talk about in a bit. And in general, I'd say actually the clean singing is quite good, and lots of good variety in the screams too, like the super deep death metal ones on Abstracted or the distorted screams on Retaliator. Killer guitar work, lots and lots of solos. If you're a guitar person, you owe it to yourself to give this thing a listen. Calculate the Apocalypse also has a very Static X sounding riff in addition to the Melodeath ones, which is an interesting touch that definitely doesn't come up anywhere else here. Maybe a little bloated with the length, kind of uneven, and just in comparison to some of these other ones, again, I'm going to have to put it at a C tier, but again, C is still good. In fact, I didn't do this at the beginning, but I normally relabel these, and, you know, no time like the present. So top is actually perfection, A is fantastic, B is great, C is good, and D is okay, or not my thing. All right, that now fixed. Let's move on to Archenemy Stigmata. So the vocals on this one, like the debut, are still just not there yet. Like, they just sound like straight garbage, in my opinion. I would say the worst of this entire batch. Riffs are still good, but then again, so are the riffs on like almost every album here, so it's not enough to save it. There are some solid moments on the kit too, with the title track, probably the best track overall too, since it's an instrumental. The piano and epic guitar harmonies on Vox Stellarum are nice as well. This also has the track that Diva Satanica of Bloodhunter takes her name from, so you should check that band out as well. But yeah, ultimately, this is going to the bottom. Looking forward to moving on to the next album, though, because Burning Bridges is excellent. All right, next up, Soilwork, the Chainheart Machine, and in my opinion, this is one of their best albums, if not their best album. Like, the riffs are insane, and Bjorn gives his most aggressive vocal performance here, for sure. I know it doesn't have the dynamics and all the cool, clean singing of some of their later, like, mid-career, more popular albums, but this is where it's at for me. The title track is also one of the best album openers in Melodeath history, period, I think, with that punchy sort of industrial sample before we kick right into high gear. Bullet Beast kills, Generation Speed Kill is a straight thrasher with super infectious scream-along moments, Spirits of the Future Sun, start to finish banger, top 10 melodic death metal album overall, I would say. S tier. All right, the Black Dahlia Murder, Miasma. So a top choice for many fans of the Black Dahlia Murder out there, but despite loving Unhallowed, it actually took me a long time to get into this one for some reason. And in my defense, this is actually Trevor's least favorite as per his own ranking that he did for Kerrang! But thankfully it has grown on me greatly over the years with classic mainstays like Statutory Ape and A Vulgar Picture. You've got those super malevolent sounding riffs on I'm Charming. Flies is just absolutely packed with hooks. The title track makes for a great closer. Another strong effort in a very consistent discography. For this list, I'm putting it at fantastic. Then we have Children of Bodom with Hatebreeder. So this carries over everything that was already great about the debut. Killer riffs, synth on point. Warheart is a fantastic opener. Love that little bass solo in particular on top of everything else. The title track has got those heavy metal hooks on it. Love those big pounding drums on Wrath Within. Children of Bodom is just brimming with riffage, and I love the little gang vocal moments on that one. But unfortunately, it still hasn't ditched those dang Yarly vocals, which still suck, especially on No Commands. I'm sorry, not sorry, again, just my opinion, but I don't like them here. It takes a very special musician to pull those vocals off just right, and I think most Melodeath musicians just don't do it. So yeah, I really enjoy this album, but it does pull down my enjoyment quite a bit, that it makes it difficult for me to re-listen. Like, you remove those and this immediately like shoots up in its grade. But songs also maybe not quite as consistent overall as the debut, I think. It's a fan favorite, but it's not quite a start to finish jam for me. I'm gonna put it at great tier. I can already hear in the comments somebody bitching that the Black Dahlia murder is above Children of Bodom. Not the first time. Won't be the last time. My list, my rules. Next up is The Haunted with The Haunted Made Me Do It. This is a fucking banger of an album right from the top with that insane earworm opening of Dark Intentions. Like, I can hear that riff playing in my head right now as I'm saying this. Perfect interplay of the drums and the guitars too, with that dun 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 dun. And then right into the classic Bury Your Dead once more, kind of marrying At the Gates with Pantera, Trespass, Leech, Hollow Ground, Silencer. I might as well name like every single track, because this thing is just endless riffs, wailing solos, great title, tight 36-minute package. What's not to love? Definitely one of my most listened albums on this list. I'm gonna put it at S tier. Then we have Kalmah with They Will Return. So to the commenter on my previous video who claimed that Kalmah ripped off Children of Bodom, 1, no. 2, I'd argue that those bands have completely different styles, even if they use some similar tools. And 3, just no. And I stand by my statement that Kalmah is the superior band overall. If that opinion, again, it is just an opinion after all, upsets you, you should probably stay off the internet, because my subjective thoughts on music are going to be the least of your problems there. As for the album, it's another triumph. I think I prefer the debut just a touch, and the vocals could maybe be just a little bit stronger in some places, especially on like Human Fates. But then again, their kind of raspy, wretched quality adds to some of the more unique qualities. Reminds me a little bit of like Chance from Skeleton Witch. Lots of great riffing and catchy synth lines here. Favorite tracks here, Principal Hero, They Will Return, and actually the Skin on My Teeth cover, which is pretty rad. On another list, this might have made S, but given the steep competition, I'm feeling more kind of a B, actually. High up there though. Let's put them right next to their friends, Children of Bodom. All right, Amorphis, Tales from the Thousand Lakes. So best of their early material, even if I prefer their later stuff overall. And by the way, I have tier lists for almost every band's discography in this list if you haven't checked them out already. This was a fun one in particular. Another great atmospheric intro here with Thousand Lakes before getting a little doomy and gloomy with Into Hiding. It starts off great, but when the cleans come in, it kind of ruins it for me. Yeah, this is another one where the clean vocals, and I gotta say it again for the new viewers here, I like and sometimes even love clean vocals. Like, particularly Dark Tranquillity is one of my favorite bands, and I love the clean vocals on those albums. But these are just not very good, in my opinion. And to be honest, I don't love the harsh vocal performance here either. Songs can also be kind of on the repetitive side, like The Castaway, and honestly, I'd say that kind of sums up the album for me as a whole. Like, not bad, and with some really solid atmosphere, but the songwriting and performances are not even close to matching the others on this list, at least when it comes to my own personal taste. I'm aware that this is a very popular album, even one of the highest rated on Metal Storm by the fans, but for me, I'm gonna put it at C tier. But to end on a positive note, we have Dark Tranquillity with The Gallery, and this thing is a fucking masterpiece. I'm so glad to get to their good albums after having to put them so low with the debut. To me, this is their true start as a band, and one of the best and most important early melodic death metal albums of all time. I wouldn't go so far as to call it perfect, since it can be a little meandering at times, but what a ride it takes you on, and just with so much charm to it. Like, Punish My Heaven sets the tone right away. The title track brings those acoustic guitars and mournful female vocals against a wood block. Not to mention that main driving melody. The One Brooding Warning is just a cascade of drums and guitar before making that proggy transition. Midway Through Infinity has those amazing gang vocals. Just a totally unique experience, and somewhere along the way, I actually placed something a little bit too high, because this is going to go at S tier at the top, and y'all know my rule, I only do like 4 per tier with these, so something's got to go. And I'd say out of these picks, man, it's tough, but I think The Haunted can go to Fantastic, but at the top. Y'all check out this playlist for plenty more metal tier list, or check out this video for more melodic death metal, and let me know down in the comments, what is your favorite sophomore album from a melodic death metal band? But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.